We all like getting new games, but as today's biggest releases become more bloated and intent on emptying our wallets, we regularly turn our attention to previously played favourites. As good as Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild are, sometimes we'd rather just play their SNES equivalents instead. The love of retro gaming has not gone unnoticed in the gaming industry, and more we're seeing new games arrive that take direct inspiration from the classics of old, whether that's a specific title or a whole beloved genre. For this list, we're going to look at 10 of the best retro-inspired games that you may have missed. For every Shovel Knight, Axiom Verge, Monster Boy, Resogun or 2 Point Hospital, there are dozens of games arriving each week, and it's too easy for some great games to get lost. It's understandable that some slip under the radar. If you grew up watching pixels turn to polygons and standard definition into glorious 4K, then these are all games for you. Every game on this list was a brand new game released in this current console generation. There are no remakes or direct sequels, so that's why you won't see the likes of Streets of Rage 4 in this video. I'm Zoidberg, and here are 10 great new games that are just like old games. Essentially two games in one, Battle Princess Madeline features a story mode with traditional action-adventure elements, but it's the arcade mode that shines most. Clearly inspired by ghouls and ghosts, this pits Madeline against wave after wave of the undead, as she battles through each level in order to avenge the death of her dog and rescue her family from an evil wizard. There are echoes of Capcom's classic everywhere, from the way Madeline jumps, how zombies can appear from anywhere, and the nice variety of weapons that you can use. Then there's the fact that when she loses her armour, Madeline even has to fight on wearing nothing but her PJs, which I suppose is at least a step up from Arthur's undies. With great 16-bit style graphics and an excellent stirring soundtrack, it all adds up to a title that feels like it was actually made in the 1990s. The run-and-gun shooter was a staple of both the SNES and Mega Drive, and no series was arguably more celebrated than Contra. With Konami striving to kill the series with last year's Contra Rogue Ops, it fell to Joy Masher to give us exactly what we wanted with Blazing Chrome. From the excellent 16-bit style visuals and music, to the level design and fast-moving vehicle sections, it's clear that this is the work of a team who have great affection for the games that influence them. There are plenty of enemies to blast your way through, including some memorable mid and end-of-level bosses, and there's always some new environmental challenge just around the corner to make sure it never gets boring. With local co-op gameplay and unlockable extras including extra characters and a hardcore mode, there's plenty of reasons to keep you playing, even if you manage to finish it once. Nobody ever thinks of Pang when the topic of classic arcade games enters the discussion, but that's doing Mitchell's classic a disservice. Although we saw a proper sequel this generation in the shape of Pang Adventures, the Bug Butcher from Awfully Nice Studios updated the gameplay in a much more interesting and enjoyable way. By replacing the bubbles of the original with all manner of alien bugs, each with their own characteristics and attack patterns, this is easily one of the best score chase arcade games you can currently buy. Each level has a time limit, score-based star rating to aim for, and a multiplayer target to test your skills, long after you finish all 30 levels of arcade mode. Even if you somehow manage to get tired after that, there's the excellent panic mode, where you simply have to survive as long as possible against wave after wave of bug attacks. Grab a friend and a second controller and it will keep you busy for weeks on end. If you're looking at making a new arcade racing game, then you might as well take inspiration from the best. Formula Retro Racing may not be perfect, but it absolutely nails the blue sky look of a Sega title, particularly Virtual Racing. The fast-moving polygon graphics have a fantastic clarity to them, and each of the game's 8 tracks manages a different colour scheme and some great trackside detail. If I was going to be hypercritical, it's not an especially hard game, and has some occasional physics glitches leading to some bad collision detection, but it was never enough to stop me from playing. What makes it all the more impressive is that it's the work of a single person. I just wish he'd put as much effort into the sound as everything else, because the music doesn't come close to capturing the Sega feeling, but then again, does anything. When it was released on the PS4, Horizon Chase Turbo was actually my third most played game of 2018, behind Dead Cells and God of War. Brazilian-based developer Aquiris adapted their own mobile game from the previous year and produced one of the most enjoyable arcade racing games of recent years. Designed for fans of the classic 16-bit racers Lotus Turbo Challenge and Top Gear, it's slick and addictive, as well as instantly recognisable to anyone who remembers the games that inspired it. The way the opposition cars behave, knowing when is the best time to use your turbos, and even the speech bubbles that appear next to your car, it's all here. They even drafted in veteran musician Barry Leach to provide the soundtrack, just to add that extra air of authenticity. Regular updates featuring extra cars and tracks via DLC have kept me playing to this day, and the inclusion of split screen for up to 4 players makes it an essential purchase. While there have been many first-person shooters that have attempted to emulate the pixelated look of the original Wolfenstein and Doom, none do it quite as well as Ion Fury. This is a brand new game built from the ground up, using the original Duke Nukem graphics engine. While this ensures that it looks like a game from 20 years ago, it's the excellent level design that makes it feel like one too. Each level is packed with secrets and alternate routes to discover, with the game making a point of telling you what you missed at the end of each one, and you'll zip around them at a breakneck pace throughout. The game never tells you where to go, but there were very few occasions where I got lost and couldn't work out where I was supposed to be heading next. Mouse and keyboard is the best way to play though, as getting the necessary accuracy can be difficult with a controller, but that's a minor criticism of an otherwise great game. The isometric 3D platform game was a staple of the Spectrum library, but as a genre it pretty much died out as soon as the world moved on to games consoles. That doesn't mean that games like Nightlaw and Head Over Heels don't still linger fondly in the memory, and Lumo is very much a love letter to that classic time. Although there are some concessions made to modern gaming, like a choice of control scheme and the character shadows that make it easier to gauge your location on screen, this is a game that keeps one foot in the 1980s at all times. Whether it's the use of Spectrum-style loading sounds, or references to pop culture and gaming, there's plenty for anyone who grew up in that era to enjoy. Best of all is the old school option in the menu. This forces you to play without the in-game map, strips away the ability to save game, and gives you a limited number of lives. If you're able to finish playing it this way, you have my utmost respect. Although it was released on Steam in 2013, it wasn't until Volgar the Viking arrived on the Xbox One, where it was given away for free as part of Games with Gold, that we first played it. From the design of the central character to the opening section of the first level, it's clear that the developers were great fans of Taito's 1987 arcade game Rastan Saga. Like the arcade games of that era, it's a challenging game but never one that cheats the player. Every hit you take and every death you suffer will be your own fault, usually because you're rushing, but you'll learn a little bit and advance further each time. With alternate levels to unlock and 3 different endings to strive for, there's plenty here to keep you playing. There's nothing I like more than reminding the rest of our team that I was the first to get the full 1000G gamer score, although I will definitely concede that our team's best completion time of 27 minutes 41 seconds is a little out of my reach.
Rescue the humans!
There was a time when it seemed like every other indie game released was a twin-stick shooter, so you could say that the Smash TV blueprint has been copied many times over. But Xenocrisis gets the formula of the Williams arcade classic spot on. Whereas modern games offer a full 360-degree range of firing, this shows its retro credentials by keeping it to 8 directions. The idea is to clear each room of aliens in order to open the exit door to the next, and the levels culminate in a fight against something huge. The levels all look different and offer a nice variety of aliens to battle, but best of all their layouts change each time you play, which helps to keep the game fresh, and there's a good selection of limited time weapons to pick up and use also. On the Switch it's a brilliant game already, particularly if you play it in local co-op, but for the ultimate retro experience it's also available to buy as a limited edition cartridge for the Sega Mega Drive, and it's well worth seeking one out if you can.
Welcome to the 3, 2, 1. Let's go!
You have to go back to 2011 for the last game in the Ridge Racer series, and with Bandai Namco showing no interest in bringing it back anytime soon, Italian developer 3D Clouds filled the gap in the market with Xenon Racer. It may be based more on the latter entries in the series than the arcade original, but the similarities are unmistakable, and lesser Ridge Racer is always going to be better than no Ridge Racer at all. This is pure arcade racing with the emphasis on speed and drifting, and it offers plenty of good looking tracks to master and some nice futuristic looking cars to race on them. You could argue that it takes a bit too long to show its true colours, with early races that feel like a bit of a chore, and getting used to the drifting takes much longer than is actually necessary. But if you stick with it, you'll be rewarded with a meaty challenge. The Switch version suffers from frame rate issues that make it hard to recommend, but on the Xbox and PS4 you should definitely check it out.
Impressive.
That brings this top 10 list to a close. There's no other metric here apart from my own opinion, so feel free to disagree with my choices and tell me which ones you would have picked instead. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, then make sure to subscribe and stick around for more just like it. I'm Zoidberg, this is UK Gaming Network, see you next time.